part of the question, and let's see if I can paraphrase it, was there's a lot of focus on the rules and regulations that drive students out. What can you do as a member of the school committee to change the venue so that we keep students in? Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to keep them in. Well, it just seems like there's, I know so many young kids that are not going to school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just
So the question is, how can we keep the kids in school? And we're going to start with Mrs. Dandridge.
Well, how do we keep kids in school? Okay. They need to have some real advocacy, as it were. They need to have help regarding, so how can we explain this, but they need to be able to have people that are going to help them and talk to them and advise them into the benefits of having a decent education. They have to have a decent education. They can't do anything in life without an education. And it's incredibly important. And to get that through to them is kind of difficult, but maybe there's a way of doing it. I don't know. I'm not a teacher. But I think that we have to try and encourage them to be able to stay in school and do things, and maybe do some more things they like. As I said before, maybe they need to do, some kids maybe need to do more vocational things. You know, there's a lot of people that want to be auto mechanics or plumbers or chefs or something like that. So they should be able to do those things too. And they should be encouraged to follow their bent, as it were, and do.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, again, the question is, what can you do in your position as a school committee member to keep the kids in school?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think first and foremost, we have to be very, very straightforward with students and make them understand that it is a $1 million decision that they are making. And what I mean by that is the difference in income that is earned by adults who have received their education versus adults that have not received their education is $1 million over their lifetime. And I think sometimes, you know, talking to young people in a way that they get money, people pay attention to money. A lot of kids they're wondering about going to work versus going to school. Making sure that they understand that they're making a $1 million decision by ending their high school education, I think can bring it home. One of the things that has to be worked on, again as a region, is there is a waiting list for the 2 technical schools across this region. There is a large waiting list, so we have to work on that.
Mr. McDonald.
I taught for many years in an alternative program, and students in those programs have different motivations, learn differently, highly capable, and many of them want desperately to be successful. The challenge is, and the answer is, programs. If you have the right programs in place, the right systems set up, so that there is a safety net in place for students who are experiencing difficulty, who need alternatives. In some cases, it could be more guidance counselors. In other cases, it may be alternative programs. There's a variety of things that need to be put in place. As a school committee member, what can the school committee do? The school committee can, can set policy. That's the role of the school committee, and work with the superintendent to set priorities. And so all of those things have to be weighed, and there are balances and counterbalances to every decision that is made. And so I think what we have to do is, what I would do is, I'd love to get a group of the students together, and I would put newsprint on the wall, and I'd brainstorm and come up with the 10 ways that they said would in fact enable them to stay in school. What would they give us as feedback?
Thank you. Mr. Dolby?
I take a little different view. I hear Mr. Murphy about the $1 million, but I have a teenager who that wouldn't have mattered to at all. the dropout rate and the out-of-school suspension percentages are very high. And that's where I think we have to attack it. And it can't be attacked, it can't be the school, total problem of the high school or the school committee. We've got to get a committee together. I recently read about Dennis Yarmouth that did this, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They drove their rates way down with a community group. Sometimes it's better, I haven't been involved with educators, they're great people, but they can use some help sometimes, get some community people together to give us some established ways we can go at this dropout rate. And how do we, what do we do to get this rate down? How do we work with kids? It's disturbing to me that it's got to this level now. And I read an equity report that was put out by Brown University that listed this very issue, and what they wanted to do was they thought that the in-school suspension was way too high. And we need to look at a new model, a new way to get at kids. I mean, if you're gonna suspend a kid from school every day, and I appreciate the difficult job high school people have, but how is that child going to want to come back to school? And by the time that child comes back to school, how far behind are they going to be? And that's where I think we start to lose people. So, again, for me, it's more what I had an opportunity to work with is community-based groups to look at these problems and see if we can get some good solutions.
Mr. Lawler?
I mean, we would all hope that every child wants to go to school so they can further education, go to college, and make themselves a better person or education-wise, but that's not always the case. Kids go for different reasons. Some is sports, some's music, some's theater. And we have to find and maintain the programs why certain children go to school and get their diploma and then blossom later on in life. But one of the issues that Tom Gilby just addressed that I agree with, I think that the zero tolerance policy and the out-of-school suspension program is wrong and needs to be corrected, in large part because if a child who's academically troubled anyway is kicked out of school for 3 weeks, now he has to catch up. It creates a treadmill effect. They just can't do it. I mean, unless it's a very serious crime, I think that discipline has to be changed to an in-school discipline. I think discipline is important, don't get me wrong. Now, whether it's after school or weekends or whatever, but we need to bring them in. We can't be kicking these kids out and expect them to come back. If they're a disciplinary problem, we have to deal with it, but we need to deal with it within our own doors. Obviously, if it's a serious felony or something of that nature, for the protection of all students, certain issues, certain children may not be able to stay. But other than that, we have to deal with it ourselves. Thank you.
Another question from the audience?